Hello and welcome back to my channel where I like to have fun with all things beauty while being critical about what I accept into my collection. Today I am doing a Pat McGrath sort of analysis video. This is directly referencing the situation with the older motherships being brought back to Sephora, and it is assumed that they have been reformulated, so they're no longer producing the baked shimmer shades. So this will have the pressed formula that we've seen in Mothership 10, 11, and 12. And this happening at Sephora, it's speculated that it's going to be like that everywhere because they're not going to be making them anymore. So once the stock sells out, they're all going to be transitioned over to this pressed formula going forward. This is not a video I ever planned to make, but we seem to have sort of a developing story on our hands, so I figured rather than only make a bunch of short form content videos that are somewhat overlapping and disjointed, I would just come over here and talk about everything that we know so far. So I want to start right off the bat by saying Pat McGrath Labs has not made an official statement. So unless we get that, we're not really going to know anything 100%. I think the reason people are going ahead and speculating anyway is because based on their track record, we may never get these answers from Pat McGrath Labs officially. Unfortunately, because I know all of us would definitely prefer that. I also want to say this is probably the first video that I'm actually nervous making because of a few different things. Number one, it's a developing story. New information is coming out almost every day. Number two, I don't want to get any of it wrong. And number three, this brand has a lot of really loyal and passionate fans, and I'm very aware that there could be some amount of backlash because of that. So my disclaimer because of that is this is all based on my personal opinions, my feelings about the changes, and everything that we know so far. I very much reserve the right to be wrong about some of these things, and I plan on including a pinned comment where I will absolutely post updates and clarify any of this if we get more information. I also plan on making another video if we do have more concrete facts, because although I wanted to wait until we had more information, I also didn't want to wait too long because I know people are interested in this now and that could change. I mean, I'm interested in it now, so I can't be the only one who wants to talk about it. The final thing I wanted to include here is up until this point, filming on Sunday, April 6th, nobody has purchased one of these reformulated palettes at Sephora and posted a review. So as far as we know, we don't have any photographic evidence of these updates. I am sure that there are influencers who are going to invest in doing that and buying those palettes and making that comparison. I know Alicia Archer already said that she is going to do that. So I'm following her channel. I highly recommend following her as well if you're interested to see that comparison, because that will be the final word on whether these changes have gone into effect. So far, the marketing has not been updated at Sephora. So the photos are all from the original palette and the ingredients lists look to be identical from the original palettes except for the addition of vitamin E. My issue there though is that from digging into the newer palettes, so Mothership 10, 11, and 12, I don't think it's the ingredients that are that different. I think it's the process of the shadows that make them different. So we're talking baked versus pressed. Based on that, I don't know if the ingredient lists on Sephora will ever change. But I also don't know that they need to, because the end result is still going to be dramatically different. So with all of that out of the way, how did this all get started? So if I go back in time, before Petalmorphosis was released, I made a video talking about this palette and how I felt about the formula changes that we have in Mothership 10, 11, and 12. Basically, no more baked shadows. In that video, I was having a hard time referencing those shades because I didn't even know what to call them. I didn't know if I should call them Blitz Astrals, just Blitz, just Astral, VR shade, whatever, special shades. I didn't know. It was getting very confusing. So somebody in the comments helped clarify that for me by just calling them high gloss shimmers, and it has to do with the formula. It really has nothing to do with what they're called because the new palettes still have blitzes and astrals and all all of that. So those are just names. I'm going to continue referring to them as special shades for simplicity's sake, because I think all of us in the makeup fandom kind of know what that means at this point. When I'm speaking about these, I'm talking about this quadrant over here in all of the Mothership palettes, except for Decadence. All of the Motherships palettes up until Mothership 9, Utopian Dream, they all had these special shades in the far right quadrant. Usually even within that, there was some differences. So we have this more chunky guy over here, we have the super smooth one down there, and then we have the high gloss shimmer. That's probably the shade that I'm the most upset about losing, because I'm not going to be silly about this. Like, some of them were not perfect. Like, whatever formula this one was, the orange shade in Mothership 6, like, it wasn't great. It was chunky, didn't really perform well. However, these smoother shimmers here, as well as the glitter formulas, so a lot of them were duochrome too, they're just absolutely phenomenal. And the part of this that is my opinion is that nothing in the makeup industry touches those shades. So these guys and this shimmer, I don't have anything else like that. I can dupe the rest of the formula, no problem whatsoever, but I've never been able to dupe those, and that is what I am upset about. Losing those two formulas is a big deal in my opinion. So anyway, now that we all know what shades I'm talking about here, the other information that I got wrong in that video that this person with insider information helped clarify. So in that video, I assumed that it was money. We all know that Pat McGrath Labs has not been doing well in the past few years. We had that article that just came out recently that talked about how many layoffs they've been having. We've seen some packaging downgrades. We all know about the plaque on the back and the holiday stuff and the special releases. It seemed that the brand was in trouble financially, so that seemed to be the most obvious conclusion to me at first. They needed to save money. The baked formulas are more expensive to produce, so I thought that was probably the reason. She let me know that it wasn't that simple. So it was kind of financial, but it was mostly because of Sephora, because apparently they sell so many palettes through Sephora that they really have to pay attention to what the Sephora customer base wants. Now, again, I don't have any official statement from Sephora, but I believe, and I think that this has been confirmed from Pat McGrath employees in a Facebook group that I'm not part of Facebook. I don't use Facebook, but I saw all of that go down on Reddit, where people were talking about the fact that the number of returns that Sephora customer made with Motherships was just so enormous that the brand took such a huge hit because of that. They needed to do something so that people would stop returning their palettes, and it is assumed that that is the actual reason that they are changing their shimmer formulas. That is a separate issue from the banned ingredient. So PTFE was banned at Sephora. By the end of last year, they needed to no longer be sold. PTFE was only ever in their mattes. So in the older Motherships, the matte formulas do contain that ingredient. They needed to reformulate those. So when all of these older palettes went on sale at the end of last year, nobody was surprised because we all knew that they needed to reformulate the mattes. However, when we found out that they might be reformulating the shimmers as well, a lot of people jumped to the conclusion that it was because of PTFE as well. But I'm here to clarify that PTFE was never in those shades to begin with, and I combed over those ingredient lists and there was nothing in them that was even remotely problematic. The ingredient most responsible for this high octane shimmer is still being sold in the Patrick Ta baked eyeshadows. So it's not because they're baked, it's not an ingredient problem. The only thing I'm left to assume is that it's a fallout issue, or possibly even an irritation issue. I have never personally ever heard anybody talk about irritation with Pat McGrath shadows, but I do know that sometimes people claim that when they are returning things at Sephora. They don't want to just return something and say, I didn't like it. They would rather say, this bothered my skin, I had a reaction, whatever, because I guess some amount of people think that that might make the whole interaction go smoother for them. They look like less of a jerk, whatever it is. reviews, so I think some amount of people might have said that they were irritating, even though they weren't actually irritating, because I didn't see a whole lot of reviews stating that. Again, the truth is probably a combination of the two, but ultimately that seems to be cited as the most prominent reason that all of this is happening in the first place. So anyway, all of this was circulating around the time of the Petalmorphosis release because everybody was waiting with bated breath to see if we would have baked shades again when we didn't, and people could tell just by looking at the promo images. So we all knew this before people had the palette in their hands. Between that and the selling off of the older palettes, change was in the air, and this person that I spoke to told me about a week before it happened that there was a chance Sephora was going to bring back some of the more popular older motherships with the reformulation with no more baked shades. As soon as I heard that, I started telling people because I personally would be really upset if I waited on getting a mothership until it was too late and they were all reformulated. I didn't expect it to happen for, maybe a couple years even. But that's sort of when I started with the updates on TikTok and Instagram. A few days go by, I'm moving on, making my Sephora recommendations video. And then at like 2 a.m., which I should not have been awake, but I was, I saw a notification on my phone that somebody let me know on Instagram that they had already brought them back at Sephora. In the dead of night, 3 older motherships popped back up at Sephora for sale. They said they were new, and fortunately, by the time I saw it, there was already a comment on there asking what was new about them with an answer saying that they have pressed glitters now instead of baked. I did a little bit more digging. I think only 2 of the palettes are available. I don't believe Divine Rose 1 is actually in stock yet. I was mainly looking for reviews, hoping that maybe somebody had bought this and reviewed it already. It doesn't seem to be the case, but I did find by looking at Utopian Dream, the question and answer section, I did see that an actual Sephora employee responded, confirming that they are pressed. And to me, that held more water than just the other person who I don't know who they are. Maybe they work for the brand. I just don't know. So the fact that the other one said it was a Sephora employee made me feel more confident that all of this is correct. When I saw that, I dropped everything and I made a video in the middle of the night because I didn't want anyone to pick these palettes up from Sephora and get bamboozled. I mean, the good thing is you could return them. At least you're not stuck with these palettes if you do buy them through Sephora. But I don't know what other retailers' inventory is like. If they're no longer producing these, that would mean that they're not selling them anywhere in the future. But who knows? Maybe Ulta has years worth of older stock. Maybe Pat McGrath herself has so much older stock, we're not going to see new palettes there for years. I just have no idea. It could be years or it could be a week. It could totally depend on the palette. There's so many variables going on. Of course, I emailed Pat McGrath Labs immediately. I asked them to clarify their inventory status and where I could buy what palettes, but of course nobody got back to me. If they do, I will update, but my track record with them has not been fantastic. Anyway, so my post about that started to get a little bit of traction, and then people were letting me know from different resources what they thought might be going on. Somebody from Red Note said that there was issues with the lab in Italy and that these types of formulas were bad for the environment, and that was the reason why they weren't going to produce them anymore. I dug a little bit into that and I didn't see any truth behind it. I haven't seen any source that says that these are at all bad for the environment or for anything. As far as I know, they're still using the same lab, which even that is just a guess based on what people in the industry are assuming. I'll pop that on the screen. This is a lab that works with Laura Geller and some other big brands, none of which seem to have any changes to their formulas going on right now. So process of elimination, what is it not? It's not likely a lab change, it's not likely Italian regulations, it's not a banned ingredient, and it's unlikely only about money. My leading hypothesis is that it probably is because of the returns made at Sephora. This wasn't Sephora putting their foot down and saying, you need to reformulate these shadows, but the brand was taking huge losses, and Sephora has bottom lines that they need these brands to make. So it's likely just that simple. And it sucks because I know a lot of people who have been longtime fans of the brand is a different demographic than the general Sephora customer, at least when it comes to eyeshadow. The insider that I know led me to think that Pat McGrath herself actually does care care about these formulas, so they've wanted to do sort of a limited release with them and like a quad or something for a while. But I don't know. I mean, my expectations are low for that because I feel like they would have made some motions toward that already. I mean, I think that would go a long way in appeasing both customer bases, her longtime fans who love that artistic formula, and the people at Sephora can get what they want if this is what they prefer. I'm sort of the belief that this is what they think they want, but they might be disappointed. But that's just my personal issue. The other speculation that has some credibility behind it, because I think it also came from that same Facebook group with this employee, they said that she might take this formula to Louis Vuitton. Part of me would be shocked by that because I would assume that Pat McGrath Labs as a brand would not want that. But I don't know any of the details about Pat McGrath, if she owns the rights to these formulations and she can take them wherever she wants, or, you know, if there's some kind of a Bobbi Brown situation happening. Like, I just have no idea what's going on. I'm skeptical, but I think that would be great. I would love to see these formulas come back to life. However that needs to happen, I would be happy. Because at the end of the day, I still love Pat McGrath and I still love those formulas. The final sort of development that happened in all of this is that just the other day, one of my videos I made trying to summarize this on TikTok, somebody tagged the lipstick lesbians, which I love them, but I never thought in a million years that they would ever see my little video, and somehow they did, and they left a comment, which just blew me away. I was like dumbfounded that I got a like and a comment from them. Unfortunately, the comment was confusing. I'll pop it up on the screen, and I'm not really sure because I haven't seen anybody say that these are not baked shades. Like, these look to me just to be baked eyeshadows. That's what I would think is baked eyeshadows. That's what the whole internet calls them. However, Pat McGrath Lab's website does not officially ever call them that. So maybe they're not. I was under the impression that they were a baked gelée or a slurry formula. That's certainly what they look like, but maybe there is more to that. I didn't let myself get too hung up on that though, because I feel like it doesn't actually matter. It doesn't actually matter. If they're gone, they're gone. So if they're not baked, if they're just like collected from outer space, however, whatever process is necessary to produce these, we are not getting anymore. So that's the bottom line. So what does this mean going forward? I know for me, I haven't given up. Obviously, I still picked up Petalmorphosis, and in my review, I went over these shades, and they're nice. They're not bad, but there is nothing special about them. I can't for the life of me justify continuing to buy Motherships if this is the formula. That's where I stand on the situation, and I'm really sad about it because, like I've already stated, I still love Pat McGrath. I still love my older makeup. I've had an issue with the brand itself ever since the Monica Bell situation on Instagram where they blocked her, and it was so disgusting how they treat all of their most loyal customers. They just delete and block comments that they don't like. And the customer service, I mean, good Lord, I went on at length about my bad experience with their customer service in my Petalmorphosis review. I'm not going to go over that again, but it's like enough is enough. So at this point, I'm mostly looking to enjoy the palettes that I have. I've already picked up any of the palettes that had the baked shades that I didn't have. So I was missing 2 of the quads, and the 2 Bridgerton palettes actually contained baked shades. It's only like 1 or 2 shades in each palette, but whatever. I did pick them up because they were cheap enough. Those are the palettes that they're selling at TJ Maxx, so they were not hard to get on Mercari. I'm happy that I have the collection that I do, but I think going forward, I'm mostly going to focus on what she comes out with Louis Vuitton. I'm a lot more excited about that than anything from Pat McGrath Labs without those special formulas, and that's just where I'm at this point. A final point that I wanted to mention is I know I personally have been talking about this on my Instagram stories, how once all of these palettes finally do change over to the new pressed formulas, I think the older ones might be worth something. I don't think anybody should be spending thousands of dollars stocking up on older Motherships, but I have heard confirmation from at least 2 people that they are still selling the older formulas at Ulta, and department stores still have the older formula as well. I would assume that Pat McGrath Labs is also still selling that formula. If you're buying these from a place where it's difficult to make returns, I would try to clarify it. Otherwise, just take your chances, and then, like, if it's Ulta, it's easy enough to return. So that's probably where I would go if I was going to pick up a new Mothership today. Outside of that, my best bet has always been Mercari. I look on Mercari and Poshmark, and I just feel like the makeup selection is a little bit better over on Mercari. I've decided at this point I'm probably not gonna get backups. Not that I would have backups for myself. I did consider getting backups to resell down the road if I think the value of these things are going to go up. It's just so hard to predict. You know, at the end of the day, makeup expires. So it's not like collecting art that's only going to appreciate in value. At some point, it's only collectors that still want makeup. I know that there are two different kinds of customers for something like this. There are actually collectors, or there are people who just really want to try the formula. I think there are two different customer bases. So based on that, if I was going to pick one up, I'm not really sure which direction I'm going to go. Am I going to get most popular mothership that people want the original formula of? Do I want the rarest one? Well, probably not, because I think the rarest one is Decadence, and I don't think anybody wants that. There's no special formula in that, but maybe a flagship like Mothership 1 or Mothership 3. I just don't know. If I do head in that direction, I'm getting 1, 2 palettes at the most. I'm not going to buy more than that because of the state of the world, because of the economy. I just don't have that much money laying around for something like that. I wish I did, because I think it would be fun. Somebody messaged me from Dubai, and they said that they can get brand new motherships with the original formula for $74. I'm like, oh my God, buy them up. Definitely resell them on the secondhand market. In a few months, you're going to be able to make so much money on that. So like, there are certain people who may be able to make an investment like that. I am not one of them. So I am avoiding the temptation, and I'm just appreciating the formulas that I have. One thing I will say is they hold up. Like even my Mothership 1 still performs really well. I do have some mattes that have some hard pan, but my baked shades are actually still just like new. So they, at the very least, they hold up. Unlike some other makeup, I think these retain their value for a little bit longer. This is just a total side note, but it did occur to me, unlike the Patrick Ta duos that have a similar formula, I'm not sure how well those are doing. The only other thing that I felt like really came close was this formula from the Natasha Denona Glam Face Palette. These two shimmers, inner corner and outer corner, I do feel like that was another formula that performed similarly. It is definitely different, but then I realized this discontinued at Sephora as well. So maybe Sephora customers just really don't like shades like that. I always had great luck as long as I used a glitter glue. I don't really know any of the people that had a problem with these shades, but at the end of the day, there's nothing we can do. Those customers obviously outnumbered the ones who liked the formula, because otherwise I don't think they would have made this change. Quickly, what's on my face today? So I have the baked shades from the Bridgerton palettes on my eye. I'll show a close-up. And on my cheeks, I have the new Westman Atelier, the blush and contour combo, Biscuit and Petal, and I am liking that very much. I am planning on doing a review of everything that I've gotten in the sale as soon as possible, because I want to get that up before the sale is over. So that is hopefully my next video. Anyway, that's sort of a summary of everything that's happened so far, everything I've been able to find out. If I find out, like tomorrow, if somebody picks one of these up at Sephora and it's not different and I'm totally wrong and all of us are wrong, well, I mean, if that happens, I'll probably just delete this video, but I'll definitely make an update, and I'll try to make some shorts too talking about this so people don't have to hunt me down on Instagram if you don't use Instagram, that kind of thing. I do tend to put all of my updates there first, but regardless, if you are somebody who loved these palettes or used to love these palettes, or based on nostalgia or whatever it is, and you're interested in this and following the story, and you know anything that I don't, please share it below. I would love to have more information. I hope it was helpful, and I hope that you're having a beautiful day or night wherever you are. Take care of yourself. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. I feel like especially in person, it's even more obvious in person than it is in these photos. I don't really know how to film and hold a flashlight, so I just use my overhead bathroom light here, but I'm hoping that you can see. I know that the color, the undertones are a little bit different, but the video does help highlight this at least a little bit more. I mean, even my husband could see the difference in these, and that goes to show that it's pretty obvious. I'm personally quite upset about this because, like, this is not a bad look. It's very pretty. But this is special. This I can't get from anything else in my collection. And I can get this from like everything else in my collection.